All right, welcome, Josh. It's really, really good to talk to you today. I've done a bit of research about you, and I know you do this quite a bit. And what I haven't come across in some of the interviews that you've done is a question that actually a friend of mine recommended to start with when I do podcasts. And that question is, what is one thing out of all these interviews that you've done, what is the one thing that people typically don't know about you?
Oh, you're going to start me off with an out of the blue question. Well, the one thing that people don't know about me is I'm terrible at out of the blue questions. I'm a slow thinker. Honestly, I am an introvert and a slow thinker. I'm the kid in class that I have no questions. I don't know what to say in a meeting. But as soon as I walk out the door, I got it. As soon as I get in my car, I got it. As soon as I get off this podcast, I'll have it. But just to humor the question, the one thing, I don't know, I guess people know I'm a classically trained singer and I still perform regularly, went to college as a vocal music major, and still love to sing, but didn't want that to be my job.
Yeah, but you actually did answer the fact that you're an introvert because you do a lot of these speaking engagements and podcasts and interviews, and I would have never guessed. So it's
well, that's why I'm doing them. I'm trying to get better at interviewing. So in past companies, I've been interviewed by TechCrunch or Forbes or whoever, and they will quote the most random backwards things that I say, and I sound like a third grader. I probably still do, but I'm trying to get better at thinking on the fly and being interviewed. And this is why I'm doing a number of podcasts, as you mentioned.
Yeah, but there's also something to be said for authenticity and the genuinity that comes across when somebody's just themselves, and I think that's something to keep in mind, because there's always talk about like public speaking and presentations, but then at one point do you have this nice balance between who you are and then also kind of that experienced speaker that says the right things and all. I feel like when you just say whatever comes to mind, sometimes it's as long as it's not nothing crazy, right? I think it's that's what makes somebody genuine and kind of who they are. So
for sure, and we'll see how it goes today. Yeah, so this is an experiment in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So Josh, I found your profile super interesting because, well, not only because of the fact that you've co-founded and founded, there's always that tricky part, like co-founded or founded, but that you started 4 different tech companies, which is really exciting. In addition to that, I found it interesting that you started them at times that maybe the world wasn't quite ready for them. Within the like e-learning and training industries, and Western our startup is very much into that space. So I think we speak the same language when it comes to that. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about just out of all the out of the 4 ventures that you have so far that you've experienced, what has been your favorite?
Well, they, like that's like asking your favorite child. That's hard to say. They've all been good for different reasons and have taught me different things. But I would have to say, Bloomfire was kind of the most fulfilling and rewarding and exciting. We were like you said, we were doing something way too early in a market that wasn't ready for it. We were building a learning platform for social knowledge sharing in the work. And this is in 2009. Like Twitter just launched the year before, so the world's barely doing social things, and I'm launching a platform where, hey, you're going to share social learning with your coworkers. You're going to share videos and screencasts, and you're going to write articles and share them with your team. And the corporate world wasn't quite ready for that yet. They absolutely are today, and Bloomfire is one of the premier knowledge management platforms out there, and was just acquired again just a few weeks ago. But at the time, it was hard. So it was challenging trying to figure out how to educate a market, how to get product market fit, how to build a product that stuck and that got users to use it, and what are those features, and how do you display those. And so that was really exciting for me at the time, and it was kind of a whirlwind romance, and it was acquired in 2011, and yeah, just probably my favorite experience until Volley. Of course, Volley is because I get to work with the most talented team on the planet who is running at the speed of light. Like what we're putting forward into the world at a weekly cadence, I've never seen its equal. What this team is able to do, largely part of the product that we're building, enabling us to move work forward faster. But Yeah, those are probably my two. Can I name two? I just did.
Yeah, that's totally
Take it
fine.
back.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I'm really intrigued with Bali. So, and just to let me try to describe how I see Bali, and you tell me if I'm spot on or not. So, Volley app, and I love it because it's stuck this phrase. It says Volley me. So when I was doing the research for it, and I was like, oh, that's a catchy thing. So Volley app is essentially I love how you described. You said trying to help the world to stop basically people killing themselves over meetings, right? Death over meetings. So and that's a thing, right? Especially in the virtual world. So Volley app, essentially, you created it to make communication simpler by basically having a video messaging system where people can just drop each other messages if they have something quick to say that adds that little human touch to it versus going on Slack or WhatsApp, which can get messy and just out of control. So and at the same time, you don't need to hop on a Zoom or a Teams call, which can be equally as exhausting. So just dropping a video message, is that correct?
Yeah, you pointed it out great. You have to pick your poison of the traditional methods. There's really only two ways to communicate with a coworker. You can either type, and I'm talking about platforms like Slack or chat or email, or you can talk. And both of them have their problems. Typing is slow. We're 7 times slower at writing business communication or an email or a Slack message than we are at this thing that we are all elite athletes at, this talking. And for that reason, we all get the sense of, we should just get in a room. We just need to talk. And that's when you flip over into synchronous mode, right? And so the beauty of typing is you can do it asynchronously. You can email 5 people within 10 minutes. But the beauty of talking is you can get so much across. It's rich. You can see my body language. You can hear my tone of voice. And we need that richness and that speed in order to solve complex problems and do what we're doing. But we're really choosing between something that's slow and inefficient or interruptive and inefficient. And so Volley really brings both of those, the best of both worlds together. It's the richness of talking with the flexibility of texting. You said it, it's video messaging. We take turns, just like we are in this conversation, just like we do in any conversation in Volley, but we record our turn with video, or we call it a Volley. And that allows this flexibility of talking with the richness of texting. And that's kind of what we're putting forth into the world. And we're building it specifically for remote work. So people say, well, it's like Snapchat for business, or it's like Marco Polo and Slack had a baby and sent it to business school. Yeah. We'll take it. Whatever you want to say. If that gets you in the ballpark, I'll take it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I'm a very much an expressionist kind of person. So I it's very difficult for me to sometimes put words into typing, and it takes a lot for me to actually write a piece of content that is written. And it's much easier to just kind of send a message. So I do this, of course, with my family members or friends, like on Instagram, I'll send them like videos and just like whatever I want to say. So the fact that, this can be done at work is brilliant, because not only are you able to send across a message that you want to deliver, but also in a way that is allows people to connect, because then you're not losing on that emotional piece of it, that body language that you mentioned, so people can actually connect better and see what's going on with their colleagues, etc. So I think that's really good. I'm curious though, I'm curious only because I run into this. So sometimes when we do like training sessions with our company, we have people that are quite shy in front of the camera, and so even recording themselves on video can be a little bit threatening to them. So have you run into that problem, or have you seen like people are quite open to using it?
Well, absolutely. I mean, about 5% of our users actually report this. They're like, I don't like looking at myself, or I feel like I'm talking to myself. And that's a normal response. Again, we're doing something that the world's not quite ready for, but almost, right? We're starting to feel the pain that would drive us toward this solution. And what I say to those users, it's going to take about 2 weeks. And in the beginning, it's going to feel like you're talking to yourself. But what you're going to find is all of these superpowers in communicating this way, and you'll fall in love with it. It was the same for me in the beginning. It felt a little belabored, but then you realize, I just said in 2 minutes, which would have been a 30-minute double edited, bullet pointed email. I just said it in 2 minutes with a lot more clarity, a lot more empathy, a lot more humanity than I could ever put in an email, to your point, right? And the person on the other side was able to listen to that on 2x, and then they could take a minute to think about their response before they give it, so that they can, people like me, slow thinkers, can come up with a fundamentally better response. Educational research supports that. And the ability to restate what you said. How often do you get to kind of cancel what you said and take it back and say it again in real life? So there's all these superpowers that happen in this asynchronous video messaging that we've created, that just by creating a little separation between the turns in a conversation, there's a lot of magic that can happen and a lot of power. And you said it is a new thing at work. And so people are getting used to it, but I can't imagine a future of work that we all imagine, this flexible, beautiful, balanced, dynamic future of work, being less comfortable with video and the power that it can deliver.
Yeah, no, listen, I think the world, I think a big part of the world is definitely ready for this part of world of work. I mean, for sure, I think it's the way forward. And if anything, it is the time to kind of put this forward, because at the end of the day, I mean, that's the future, right? So we are going to be on camera. We are going to be meeting remotely more and more. A lot of companies, I mean, every week, I feel like there's a company talking about remote, going fully remote. I think PwC in the States was the last one that I read. So that we're talking about 40,000 plus employees. And as a manager, from a managerial perspective, how do I possibly maintain touch with everybody? And it's not effective to only be emails or chats or Zooms, and to be able to still connect, because I think from a human perspective, it is so important to have that face-to-face. And what I love about it is that you don't get that Zoom fatigue effect with these messages, right? And that's a lot of struggles right now with companies, because it's like, well, yes, people are tired to be on camera, but at the same time, you want to see your team, right? So that's like I feel like it's a beautiful solution to all these challenges we're currently experiencing. So I think the world is ready, and if they're not, they will be ready very soon. And if anything, the last couple of years showed us that we can be ready faster than we imagine. So I think you're in the perfect space, and this is a perfect time.
Well, COVID sent us there. I agree. I was just at a founder meetup last Friday, and it was interesting to hear all of the other founders. The big thing they're struggling with is, what do we do with our office space, and how do we bring our team in? And is this 3 days a week? Is it 3 hours a day? Is it what? And they were kind of figuring this out. And I think that we're trying to figure out this hybrid thing. Like Apple's tried to bring the team back in, and the team was like, no, thanks. Right. And they're like, oh, well, okay, only if you want to. Right. So if Apple can't get you back in the office, I don't know how other folks are going to do it. And I just think the dam has cracked. It's starting to break. We haven't really seen the full deluge yet. But as Simon Sinek said in a couple of weeks ago in a video he launched, we're still living on existing relationships that we had before the pandemic hit. We knew each other well. That's why it's worked so well this far. But now hire 20 people and add them to your team in a virtual environment. Let's see how that goes without some meaningful way to connect. And that's exactly what we're seeing. You mentioned reduced meetings earlier. That's what we thought we were when we came to market. But what our users have told us is, no, Volley, yeah, you can reduce some meetings for us. That's awesome. But what you're really about is helping us communicate better so that we can increase connection between team members, because I can send a beautiful video message that's 30 seconds long. The other person can listen to it in 15 seconds. That saved us both on either end, and we can say what we need to say and move on with our day and increase connection along the way. Whoa, that just rhymed. I've never said that before. Actually, it just fell out on this podcast. Record that. Someone transcribe that.
I love that. So actually, you brought a couple of good points. So you know what else I see as the benefit of this is to help people communicate more effectively. Because if you think about it, so some people like myself, like sometimes it takes me a while to kind of formulate the words when I type or write. But a lot of people have the same challenge, especially some of the young generations, especially some of the young generation in tech. It's much more difficult for them to actually say what they want to say in a very direct kind of manner to a point. So the question is, does a Volley have a time limit of how long the message should be?
Not right now. We've thought about implementing, I mean, it's 20 minutes right now because there's a technical limit and who wants to watch a 20-minute video of you talking, right?
Yeah.
But most Volleys are less than 3 minutes, like something like 97% are less than 3 minutes. So it's meant to be conversational, transactional. Yeah. Our view of video is not a piece of content like all these other platforms where you can make a video, edit it, share it with someone. Video is a vehicle for communication, and that's what we're using it for. So it's meant to be turns in a conversation. However, there's in my research, there's been this fascinating pattern that exists across all languages, all cultures, is this 200 millisecond gap in between turns in a conversation. You sense it, I sense it in this interview. You're thinking about it right now subconsciously, because we know that if we wait 600 milliseconds in between turns in a conversation, that's an awkwardly long pause. So we want to fill the gap in 200 milliseconds, again, across all languages and cultures. Therefore, while you're talking, I'm generating my response. There's no way for me to generate a response within 200 milliseconds. And for people like me, it's even worse. And to your point, right? So educational research has shown that if you can wait 3 seconds, a minimum of 3 seconds after asking a question, asking a student a question, they know that they're going to get this 3 second gap, they're going to generate a fundamentally better response because they have a little breathing room. And with Volley, you can take 3 seconds, you can take 30 seconds or 30 minutes, whatever the conversation needs, right? But you can go away and whiteboard something and think about it, do the research and call someone and then respond in 10 minutes or whatever that is. Synchronous conversation doesn't allow us that flexibility. I have to respond to you within 200 milliseconds. I don't really know, but I know you want an answer. So I'm going to say something right now, and you don't know when I'm going to stop talking. So you're trying to figure out what question you're going to ask next, and I'm going to stop talking right now. How about that?
3 seconds, that was long. I had to count it.
That was long, right?
It felt long, right? No, I think it's spot on. Yeah, it's I love that. And you know, and I guess it's weird how uncomfortable we are with these moments. And you know, the funny part is that it's only 3 seconds, and they use this actually in therapy quite a bit. I think it's in therapy and just like in coaching and listening. You know, you kind of give that space. You count to 3 because the chances are a person will actually have a lot more to say afterwards, or you do like follow-up questions. So what else? Is there anything else you want to add to it? And usually this is when you get to the deeper kind of meat of the conversation in that case. So that's super interesting. And I love it that you guys are implementing that. I can also see how when you are limited, or, you know, not just limiting, but, you know, do kind of maybe put some kind of limit, because it does help people say, okay, what do I really want to articulate in the next 2 or 3 minutes? Right. It's quite nice. And I mean, being in the tech world and kind of being around the younger generations, I can see how this can be very helpful in terms of communication, because that's you know, I mean, I just feel like that's one area that we could do better at, is communication across board. So I think you will essentially create better communicators and also build those better relationships. So that's awesome.
That's the hope. I mean, communication is hard as it is, as you cited, but now squash 100% of what we could have communicated down to 7%, which is just the words that we speak. That's what text communication actually delivers. And you make it even harder. We just did some research. Almost everyone in the 2,000 remote workers that we studied said that they retype either an email or a message, like a Slack message, every day because of miscommunication. Because there's a lot. I mean, the famous example here is we need to talk. Like, there's 1,000 ways you could take that. We need to talk. Okay. Is that good? Is that bad? Am I getting fired? Oh no. Or did you see something funny last night and we need to talk about it? It could be either, but you can't get that. But in a video message, we need to talk. You got it. You know what this is about. I'm excited. I've got something. You can't wait to hear it. Let's go. I'm not getting fired today, right? So these are the small things that take no more time for me to deliver than if I were to type that as a Slack message, emoji, right? But they just come through in video, and that's kind of the power of video, and therefore why we're trying to bend it as a vehicle for communication.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that you mentioned about the thing that Simon Sinek said, it's pretty spot on as well. So you're right. We have been working well in this case because we've known each other, but But as you onboard new people, and that's a good point, because that could be really beneficial, because how do you build those relationships at the end of the day? And I think that's something we haven't yet figured out. I mean, many companies have not, right? So I think that would be super helpful. It's cool.
Hard. Yeah. Can I share an example? We hired an engineer, I guess at the beginning of the year. And after he started, or no, this is actually right before he started, because we did all of kind of the getting to know you on Volley, the back and forth daily, just chit chat, whatever, getting to know you, tell me about, this, that. And then of course we had a stiff, contrived synchronous interview that we had questions in a can that we asked Zach, I'll say his name. God, he won't be embarrassed that I mentioned this. But then we went back to Volley and we talked almost every day, and I would bring something up or he brings something up, or I ask about my experience or my family or this. And he said the day before he started, he was like, you know what? I feel like I already know you. This is the weirdest thing. I've never started at a company and I feel like I'm already friends. He said, I feel like we're already friends. I'm like, yes, that's it. You get it. That's the value of this product. And, to support that, in this research we just did, only 4% of respondents said that they didn't have difficulty with onboarding. So the vast majority of people had difficulty with this virtual onboarding or feeling connected to a team or getting to know someone. And it's something like 72% of respondents said, I gotta brush up. This just came through this morning. So 72% respondents said that they couldn't identify one of their coworkers. They probably couldn't identify. They work with someone that they don't think they could identify in a lineup. They know them by name only on their direct team. That's crazy, right?
I believe it. I believe it. I mean, you see this so much. I believe it. It's crazy. They need Volley. I mean, listen, it's a brilliant,
Sure.
I'm telling you, this is what we've been doing with Bestern for the longest time. It's like working with corporations and kind of how do you make teams more effective, et cetera. And I can tell you the lack of communication, the lack of that personal touch, that emotional intelligence, that body language, the empathy shown, there's so much miscommunicated because people, and emotions are high and et cetera. And like you said, you can call, somebody can read a message as we need to talk, as in we need to talk, or we need to talk. Two different things, right? Two different responses. So it's listen, I think it's spot on. I think it's spot. I'm really curious to where it's going to take off to. I'm also curious, why Volley? What does it mean? Anything? Am I missing something? Volley? Like, what's the actual name?
The name? Yeah, the name just means to send something across. So it's used in sports. Volleyball, you're hitting something across a net to the other side. Tennis, a volley is a hit over the net, or in ping pong, it's you volley for serve, you hit back and forth. It's actually technically a rally, but in tennis, you call it a volley for serve. So it's just the idea of like sending something back and forth. It's asynchronous. It doesn't happen at the same time. The name Volley seemed to lend itself. It also verbs nice, volley me, so we like it, and our users are picking it up. And there's a lot of our users who don't want to schedule another synchronous call, and they're just like, hey, here's my Volley link, jump in, we can chat, and I'll listen to you on 2X, you'll listen to me on 2X, and we'll decide whether we want to take it any further.
I love it. I want a Bali now. So I want a Bali. I'm gonna be convincing my business partner.
Well, Volley me.
Volley, yeah, that's awesome. Listen, I want to shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about you as an entrepreneur. So this whole podcast, and kind of why I mentioned before we started, kind of why I started, is because I just feel like people have awesome stories to share, and I feel that we all go through similar challenges, and we're more similar than we are different. And I'm always curious to hear kind of from different perspectives of entrepreneurs, and you've had quite a few experiences, and definitely more than me. So I'm curious to hear from you. So a couple of things. One, I know you took a break between when you exited one of your companies and then kind of started with Volley, I believe, or maybe, I think it was Volley. So what sort of, and I know you talked a little bit in your previous interviews, a little bit about kind of what you were sitting there thinking about what's next. And I think that's on top of the minds of not just entrepreneurs, but actually even career people that kind of take a break and say, what's next? What has helped you in that space? Like, what was the space that you had to create for you? Was it just to not do anything? Or what was it that created your space to say, what's next? What helped you figure out what's next?
That's a good question. Well, I'll first address, and you know this, having been a founder yourself, that it is probably creatively and energetically the most ambitious thing you can do. And for, at least for me, all of my companies, it's taken everything that I have and am to make them happen and to will them into existence, right? So, these founders that go like back to back to back, they have either figured out something I don't know about delegation or a way to work, or they're just sick, because after every one, it's just like, I just need a break. But once you turn on that founder, that entrepreneur switch, once you start to see problems and realize that you could fix them, which is kind of the base idea of what entrepreneurship is fixing a meaningful problem for the world. It's hard to not see problems. So for this reason, like, some people don't like going to restaurants with me because they know I'm going to be like, why did they put the sign there? And why we got to walk to the other? This doesn't make sense. Why are we walking to this side to order? And we should be, and they should put the trays, and you just start to see things like, oh, this could be better. This could be smoother. And so I keep a list of hundreds of ideas that I see something, I'm like, somebody should solve that problem. Somebody should build this thing. Oh, there should be a this for this. Oh, there should be a that. So I keep a spreadsheet, and that just helps me stay focused, because I'm very much a monotasker. I have this unpopular opinion that there is no such thing as a side hustle. We could get into that later, but for that reason, I throw them in a spreadsheet and I don't think about them any longer, because I picked the thing that's worth working on, and I'm going to work on it until it works. So, after I take a little breather, I get the old spreadsheet out, and I've built a rubric that helps me evaluate these ideas, because depending on what season of my life or what I'm trying to accomplish or what is interesting in the world, the rubric may change and the columns and the weighting may change. And I start working the process of like a way that just helps surface the most interesting ideas near the top of the list. And I just start working at the top of the list and starting validating ideas. And on the road to Volley, there are 12 different ideas that I spent weeks or months on, from pickle company to RV park roll up to a smart car air freshener to several software ideas. And I passed on all of them for different reasons, but it was really the pandemic hitting, my love for asynchronous communication, and the idea of Volley hitting all at the same time. I was like, I know what the world needs, a better way to communicate. Here we go. Let's do it. So that was a 4-year journey for me. So I took kind of 2 years off to breathe, and then 2 years full-time working and validating ideas before Volley hit. Luckily, I've had success enough in my career. I'm blessed enough to be able to do that, to take that time. I know most people aren't able to do that, and I hadn't been able to do that up until, recent life. But I'm grateful for that opportunity.
Mm. And what's so important that you mentioned is that it took you 12 different ideas and actually experimenting with other things to get to Bali. And I'm sure you've done similar things with your other ventures previously. So, and that's so important for entrepreneurs, and especially the young people graduating college and maybe kind of looking to go into the space, or even just career change seekers that are like, maybe I want to try something and they've never been in that entrepreneurship kind of journey. And it's not straightforward. And you were so spot on with this, because I'm like, it does take that many tries. Yeah. Sometimes you just have to try things. And I do sometimes speak at universities, and students ask me, well, how do I know, or how do I start? And I was like, you just start. You just take any idea that you think is interesting, whether it's about the career that you want, whether it's about a startup and idea for entrepreneurship, whatever it is. Just start something. And I'm so grateful you said it, because it's, and you have that experience behind you. So this is a validated, in my opinion, statement. It's because you've been through it, and you're absolutely right. And so thank you for saying that, because when I talk to students, I'm like, you just have to start. And even if you're not sure then where. Right.
In fact, I have the same slide because I speak at universities as well. It's called be brave enough to try. That's one of my 7 things. And I have a story. Can I share it?
Yeah, please.
Like how I learned that. And I wasn't born with this. I grew up in a home that was afraid to try and kind of lived by fear. And I grew up in a place that was kind of we didn't stick our necks out. This is in the rural Midwest, right? And it was very blue collar. And a friend of mine, so I bought a truck, a Toyota 4Runner that had a blown head gasket. And a friend of mine, I knew he owned a Toyota 4Runner and I knew he worked on them. I called him up and I was like, hey, do you know how to fix a head gasket in a 4Runner? And he's like, yeah, just bring it over on Saturday. We'll fix it. So she said, just buy the parts and we'll fix it. And I was like, okay, cool. So I went over to his house, brought the parts, brought the truck, and he started taking the engine apart. He started unbolting this, unbolting that, unbolting this. And then I saw him put something back on. And I was like, wait, do you know, have you ever fixed a head gasket before? No. What? No, wait, we can't do this. We can't. He said, it's just nuts and bolts. Like if a mechanic can do it, we can do it, right? I was like, what? Are you kidding me? We could fix a car if we wanted to, right? But the same is true for just about anything. And it's just a matter of being brave enough to try. Most people have never done the thing they have done before they did it. And so you, as you said, you've got to try. You've got to stick your neck out. You've got to throw some things at the wall and try. My last company, Quizzer, that was idea number 7 that we worked on together. And then that wasn't even right. We built a quiz tool for teachers and trainers. They gave it blank stares. And at the same time, publishers found Quizzer, embedded quizzes on their website, and blew the thing up like overnight. We're like, oh, I guess we're a quiz tool for publishers. So we started building that the next day, right? And you wouldn't get to these places if you didn't try, if you weren't willing to make mistakes and, break some knuckles along the way.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think the earlier we can embed this, I'm so glad you're talking to students about this, but they're early. Oh, look at you, Volley. I recognize the sign. Well, I can't even do it anymore. So you're spot on. So the earlier we can get students and youth to really start experimenting, then the more hopefully, great ideas that we're going to have in this world. Because what I've also noticed kind of working and with mid-level professionals and senior level individuals and corporates is that at some point our resilience to try things diminishes as we get older and we get more responsibilities and we don't get out of our comfort zones, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the earlier we can start experimenting and doing this, the better it is. And you're right, it's just, you just have to start somewhere, and not be afraid to look silly or to make mistakes. Yep. Because at the end of the day, nobody's watching as much as you think they are, and everybody's just busy with their own things. Right. So, yeah. So another question I have then, in terms of you, like as an entrepreneur, is there any habits or routines or something that you do, like rituals that you do that helps you through your day? Because it's a roller coaster. We have to agree on that. It's a roller coaster of just emotions on a daily basis. How do you manage through all the ups and downs of entrepreneurship?
Well, historically, I don't, is historically the answer. Honestly, after every company, I'm fatter, sicker, just a worse human being all the way around.
Oh, no.
However, I'm trying to change that with Volley. And so what I'm trying to, and it's really my morning routine. I wake up very early before the sun rises, and it's a mixture of exercise, meditation, reading, and just kind of collecting myself, connecting and preparing for the day. And this is a couple of hours I spend every day doing this. And the result is I'm thinner, I'm healthier, I'm better than when I started Volley. And that's my goal. Whenever I exit Volley in whatever way that is, either grand or sad, or I hope to just be a better, healthier, more centered human being. So it's really those morning rituals and routines, whatever feeds you, you have to pay yourself first with those things. And if you don't, the day or the world is just going to take those from you throughout the day. And I've tried those things in little pockets before, but never as consistently as I have with Volley since we started just about a year ago.
Yeah, and I think it just takes time. And so with the work that I do, there's a big part on well-being. And I can tell you last year, it's like we've had our struggles because of everything that has happened in 2020 and et cetera. And I can tell you that I've probably was in probably the worst physical, mental, many aspects, shapes of my life, because you just sometimes you're just so focused on what you're doing, and you have this mission, and you almost just, you know, relentlessly go after it. And I mean, I'm admitting it because we focus a lot on well-being, and I can tell you, even being in this space of like, you know, well-being in some parts, that still you get caught up in your own thing. And I think that makes it even more difficult if you love what you're doing and you believe in what you're doing. And then on top of that, you have, of course, pressures and deadlines and all these things. So I think it's easy to end up in that situation. So thanks for transparency and honesty, because I think that's also important, because there's a lot of, you know, this I don't know, the especially in the Middle East, in Dubai, where we are, there's this trend of entrepreneurship that it's all these rosy flowers and it's just fun and games, and it's the opposite of that. It's sometimes it's miserable, you know, but the rewards are just as high as, you know, as high as the lows are the low, you know. So you, and I think that's important to understand, is that no matter how put together you might seem, or how much you understand the concept of, oh, I need to take care of myself, sometimes you get so caught up that even those of us that should know better kind of end up in that situation. So, but I'm glad you found that balance, and I think there's a time and a place for all of that. So it's yeah, so I'm glad you found that balance.
It's hard to find, as you said. We've here in our small startup community in Utah, we've had a couple tragic founder deaths that we believe are tied to mental well-being. And it's just a lonely place. Like, even if you have co-founders, it can just sometimes be a lonely place to be a leader. And so you have to have these ways to reset yourself, or people that you can talk to and share with. I've used an executive coach for years, and she's helped keep me sane, honestly. And I can talk to her and tell her things that wouldn't be the right things to talk to my co-founders about today, because we're trying to do this or get this to happen, right? And process things in another way. So yeah, founders should look for every opportunity they have to fortify their mental wellness in whatever ways they can. You have to work out and train and study like a founder, and that's higher than most. That's more than most people will have to do to maintain their level of mental fitness in their career.
Yeah, and I was talking to another guest on my podcast, Mark Metry, and he does a lot about social anxiety, and he has a book, it's called Screw Being Shy. And recently he's gotten more into how do we actually show up as our kind of best selves in terms of our mental presence and mental fitness. And he's been doing a lot of research on this. And so he found that just, I mean, of course, exercise we know, but I think we just don't give endorphins enough credit for why they exist and what happens, yeah. Right? And also the whole idea of what we eat and what do we put into our body, and the whole idea of the biodome, right? Like our gut bacteria and keeping it healthy, and how it affects our moods and all of these things. And I think these small little changes, no matter whether you're an entrepreneur or whoever you are, just as a human being, I think is essential to keep in mind. I'm all up for it. I think movement is life, and that we should continuously to move as much as possible. What do you wish people knew about entrepreneurship? What do you feel is not talked about enough?
Well, I think we're hitting on something with the mental wellness. That's a hard topic to talk about. It's a hard topic to be vulnerable about. You know, I've struggled with it as well. It's kind of that depression and that loneliness and feeling. But I don't know, what do I wish others knew about entrepreneurship? It's such an individual thing. When I started, I thought I knew how to do this. And I showed up my first day, my first company, I left my corporate job cold turkey. I showed up the first day at the Chamber of Commerce. And I was like, hey, I'm here. I want to start a company. How do I do that? And they told me about this thing called an LLC and all this stuff. And I realized, oh, I don't know anything about starting a company. And it was like drinking from the fire hose for the first year. So what do I wish people knew about entrepreneurship is that you have to be ready to learn at the speed of light, like you've never learned before. And it's the craziest paradox when you're not found, like in those 4 years break I took between Quizzer and Volley, I read maybe one business book or one self-help book, right? But the moment I start Volley, I'm like, whoa, I've got 100 books I got to read. I got to get through this material. I got to study with this person. I got to figure this out. It's finally the class is in session and you need to learn. And you happen to be the busiest person on the planet and the least ability to make time to learn. But that's the thing, trying to find a balance in the things that you have to learn and improve at the same time as focusing on the thing that you're doing. So I guess in a long way to say, just be ready to learn.
Yeah, I love that. My business partner would love it when he's listening to this. So when we were kind of going through all these troubles and you know, we're trying to keep up with things. And at one point I was like, Yvonne, listen, I don't know, I don't have the capacity to figure out any more things. You know, you just get to a point, you're like, there's so much that you need to learn. And he was like, Elena, we need to learn every single day. He's like, I want you to allocate, you know, etc. And so, and it's absolutely right. And it's making time. Otherwise, because in a corporate, this is what many people don't understand. In a corporate, you have a whole system. You have resources, access, you have people that are great at what they're doing, and marketing and sales and I don't know, program development, project management, whatever it is. You have resources of brilliant people that you can kind of pick on. And sure, you can create the same kind of environment in your network, but like as a founder, you need to be doing things like this. You need to experiment. You cannot wait to have a coffee with a friend that might give you some insights, and they don't know your business at the end of the day. So it's different. So in a corporate, you have that support network. When you're starting a company, I mean, I'm preaching to the what's the expression? I forget.
The choir.
Yes, I'm preaching to the choir. I lost my track of thought. I'm preaching to the choir when I say this, but you literally have to just continuously learn because it's not as available to you. So that's I like that. Be ready to learn. There's a great book. I don't know if you read it. It's called I'm looking. It's right there. It's called The Messy Middle. Have you read it?
Oh no.
The Messy Middle. I highly recommend it. It's by Scott. I can't see that far now. But Scott somebody. It's a yellow book. It's called The Messy Middle. Somebody recommended to us one of the accelerators actually that we were taking part in, and The Messy Middle, one of the best entrepreneurship books, as real as it gets, you know, beautiful. I highly recommend it. Even as an experienced entrepreneur, I think you'd really appreciate it. So thank you for that. Another thing is, if you had a magic wand, let me ask you, if you had a magic wand to transform the way we communicate, and maybe I know the answer to this, but the way we communicate in, let's say, corporations, what would that magic wand do?
Well, I mean, Volley is the obvious answer. That's what I'm building here, but maybe I'll go a step further in saying that there's a lot of pomp and circumstance around communication in the corporate world. Still, even though we have tools like Slack and it's a little more informal, but Zoom, it's just still too buttoned up. And what we're trying to do with Volley is not just build a technology that people can embrace and use to move work forward faster, increase connection, but to be more real and authentic with themselves and raw. Like this morning, I sent a Volley out to our entire user base, and I showed my user account, and these are the people that I'm talking today, and these are real conversations. And this is Amelia, and she's doing her daughter's hair. She can't do that on Slack. She wouldn't do that on Zoom, and you can't do that on Loom. So this is a unique opportunity that she's a fellow entrepreneur. She owns a company called Navati, it's in the mental health and wellness space. It's a platform for mental health and wellness. And we're chatting about intermittent fasting and the benefits of extended fasting and what that is, and different magnesium supplements, right? But she wouldn't be able to have that time to make that connection with another founder. And then in the same day, later today, I'm coaching her on fundraising because she's going through her first Series A round and showing her the ropes, so to speak. Neither of us had to schedule time to do that. Neither of us had to drive somewhere to meet up for a coffee or to do whatever. It's just naturally happening. But I'm out there making my protein pancakes at lunch. She's doing her daughter's hair. That's kind of the beauty. So what I would say as an answer to that question is to drop the pomp and circumstance and get real. Let yourself shine through. Don't worry about a bad hair day. Don't worry that you're on a walk. Don't worry that your kid walked through and is banging a drum. Go with it. Sing with your kid. Flip the camera around. Show us the line at Chick-fil-A. We don't care. It only makes us love you more when you are vulnerable with one another. So I think that would be my message, is to just, when it comes to communication, be real, be vulnerable, be yourself, show your context. And I think we've come from a lot of baggage that helps us feel like we need to be buttoned up and a little bit careful and a little bit private and, keep people at arm's length. And I think that's only damaging to us as teams and human beings, because the number one problem with remote work is loneliness. I've already said that about founders, but it's lack of communication and loneliness. They're tied for number one, actually. And it's hard because you're sitting in your home all day. There's a lot of convenience, but you don't connect on a Zoom call. You think what we do, Zoom happy hours, that's forced fun. By definition, that won't be fun.
Yeah, we stop with those, please.
Hey, could you take yourself off of mute and tell us, Josh, could you turn your camera on? Josh is going to tell us a joke, everyone. Get ready. Get ready. He's going to tell us a joke. It doesn't work. You can't do it. And the written communication isn't going to do it either. We need this face-to-face without being back to back. And that's why I go back to my first answer, which is Volley, which gives you that flexibility to be eyeball to eyeball in a way that's much more easy, much more fluid, much more flexible. And we can pack it into corners of our day and still get to deep work and moving things forward with our hands, which is what we were hired to do after all, right?
Yeah. Listen, I feel Bali is going to be, is the next thing that the corporate world is going to, take over. I mean, it's or you guys are going to take over the corporate world. Absolutely. I mean, I think
you heard it here, folks. You heard it here. Fifth podcast.
I'm sure it's been said over, and I'm sure everybody that hears about it feels the same way. I'm sure whoever's listening to this, be like, yeah, this is an obvious solution. So, but I mean, really, I mean, understanding kind of communication and impact of communication, the challenges corporations are having right now, coming from that world. It's definitely a solution to a lot of the things that we're dealing with. So, and loneliness, spot on. Absolutely. That's a major thing. And it's around the world. It's a global human problem right now. So it's, I'm very excited for what's to come. Listen, I wanted to ask you just a couple more questions. And I think one of the things that we often get stuck on is our failures. So what has been, maybe if you have an example, and I'm sure there's plenty just being an entrepreneur, but what has, when have you failed that has possibly led you to something even bigger and greater? Which failure, perhaps if you give us an example, or where has failure prepared you for something even better?
Well, I don't know. The biggest failure I would say is avoiding conflict. This is something, and where it has taken me is a place where I just don't. I do not avoid conflict. I go head into it. I mine for difficulty, for conflict all the time. But with my first co-founders, I wouldn't speak the truth. I had a nice tea party and made nice and made happy and yucked it up. But things were not trouble-free, and things needed to be addressed. And then they piled up, and embarrassingly, I cut ties with my first co-founder, and it was out of the blue for him. We had worked together for like 8 or 9 months. It was just hard. He didn't realize that it was hard because I didn't tell him. I wasn't honest about it. Why it was hard, and why it was hard for the team, and why the tension in our relationship was kind of toxic for the whole company. And I had to deliver it to him in a 5-hour long tear-filled conversation. It was just a train wreck. And we've now hugged it out. We're now friends again. But that has been one of my greatest mistakes. And I've paid the dearest for that, avoiding conflict. But now that's made me a much better leader who is much more skilled and able to express when things don't feel right and go right to the heart of conflict. But I still struggle. We all struggle with that, right?
Yeah,
it's hard to say hard things.
Yeah. Listen, I talk a lot about emotional intelligence, and I think I fail at it on a weekly basis. So
Yeah.
I've been teaching this, talking about this for years, and literally on a weekly basis, I fail at emotional intelligence on the one way or another. So, so yeah, it's all a journey. Be ready to learn. Just continue to learn. I think that's the messaging. Listen, I admire what you're doing. The kind of just the impact that I think Volley is going to make. Super interesting. So thank you for being very transparent, and just really just being yourself, being very genuine. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Where can people find you?
Well, volleyapp.com is probably the best way right now, because every new user gets added to a conversation with the team, which I am kind of captaining the responses to that right now. That will not last. That is not scalable. And we're getting to the point where it's getting a little ridiculous. But why wouldn't a founder take a chance to have a moment of conversation with a new user who's just downloaded this app and is experiencing for the first time? I've never had this as a founder. I've got to take advantage of this opportunity. In fact, it's probably the most impactful thing I can do. So if you download Volley, you'll be in a conversation with me, whether you like it or not, or you can just go find me on LinkedIn.
Nice. So LinkedIn and Volley app, just Volley app. Yeah. Awesome. Listen, thank you so much again. Thanks so much for being here. And until next time.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Great conversation.